And we are back. Outright International is an organization tackling human rights violations and abuses directed towards lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and intersex individuals. Over time, the organization has transitioned its focus to actively promote the human rights of LGBTIQ individuals on a global scale. It's devoted to collaborating with partners worldwide to enhance the capabilities of the LGBTIQ human rights movement. And we've got with us now, sharing more, the Senior Development Manager of Outright International, Chandler Bazemore. And Chandler, thank you for being with us. I guess the question is, when we talk a little bit about these rights, and we talk about the fact that the rights are out there and they should be, it should just be the way that it should be, but the reality is it's not. And you got some work to do. So glad to have you with us.
Thank you so much, Darren. I appreciate this opportunity with Broxnet to be able to share the work of Outright. So thank you so much for this platform.
No, glad to have you. And so when we talk about Outright International, obviously you guys have been at the forefront, as we said, since 1990, really bringing forth advocacy and rights. Talk to me about where you are today.
Sure, excellent. And you set it up just perfectly. So we were founded in 1990, and since that onset, and which has shaped our work, is that we have been focused on strengthening the capacity of the LGBTIQ movement, and we do that through documenting and amplifying human rights violations, and also advocating for inclusion and equality. So that has been our driving force, and we framed our work under four pillars. And those four pillars are to amplify, meaning that we want to spread the word, that we hope people would join us in spreading the word about the work that Outright is doing and that our activists are doing. You can sign up for our newsletter at outrightinternational.org, where you will receive monthly just some of the things and the issues that are prevalent and going on in the LGBTIQ movement globally. Also supporting Outright. The movement takes funding, so you're given opportunities to fund not only Outright, but also our work in how we support our grantees and our activists. And then also advocating for LGBTIQ human rights. And we do that through our relationship, our unique relationship with the United Nations. Outright is privileged enough to be the only LGBT organization that has direct access to the delegates and the ambassadors at the UN. And through our work with the core group, which is a group of countries and delegations that are committed to ensuring that the LGBTIQ movement and also the issues that we face are always reflected in anything that the UN does. We're sort of the core group is sort of a watchdog on the other 193 countries represented at the UN to make sure that our movement, our issues, and our challenges are placed at the forefront and given the time and the attention that it needs. And then finally, our last pillar is to celebrate the accomplishments that Outright receives and that our activists and our grantees receive. These accomplishments are few and far in between and hard fought. So we want to take the time to celebrate those moments and celebrate the movement and be able to encourage and foster change and growth. So we want to take the time to smell the roses and share our flowers, so to speak.
Chandler, help me understand a little bit more the more prevalent issues right now, because as we all have watched and seen, we've got incidents of hate that are still permeating our community. But from a person with boots on the ground, what do you find to be the most prevalent issues that you are dealing with right now?
Well, the one unique thing about Outright is that we don't take a colonizer approach where, in the sense that we go in and dictate what our grantees, our activist partners, and organizations that we partner with globally, don't go in and dictate what they should be working on. We follow their lead. So the issues and the challenges are as varied and as varied as the different countries and regions that we represent. But one of the core themes and threads throughout is to address the issue of visibility. Because with visibility, there is the acknowledgement not only of our presence, but the acknowledgement that our issues and our challenges should be addressed and can be addressed. When organizations are visible, they have a right and are entitled to a seat at the table. One of the pillars that Outright has been since its founding is our research. So we compile data and release reports on the trends and the things that are going on in the LGBT community. One of our most recent reports is on the importance and the significance of LGBTIQ organizations registering within the governments in the countries that they are involved in. And the reason that this is important and registration is important is because one, not only is it visibility, but it's also the acknowledgement of existence. And then in times of crisis, when organizations or countries are distributing funds and resources to rebuild and address issues, the organizations that they go to first are those organizations that are registered with the government. So it is about visibility and also being able to have a seat at the table and having access to the rights, privileges, and protections and resources that all organizations are facing. So I think the overwhelming thread that connects all of the issues that our organization and our grantees are dealing with is the issue of visibility, is the acknowledgement of our presence and the importance of the issues and challenging and giving a platform to address them.
You know, when you talk about using that word, having a seat at the table, the first thing people always think about is that corporate seat at the table. But the reality is that having a seat at the table is not just at one specific location, it's really all across. When I think about the work that you're doing right now, you're not just local, you're not just national, you're international, you're global. Giving global advocacy. Take us behind the scenes, if you will. Give me a little bit about the global advocacy piece and what you guys are doing there.
Sure. Our global advocacy is really grounded in working with distinct groups to advance their agendas and advance and promote their work. So, our global transgender program is about raising support for trans activism. And really, as I mentioned before, the key with that is visibility. In many countries, they are not allowed to organize. They are not allowed to have a presence. That presence is often suppressed and ignored. So, with our Global Trans program, it's really about supporting trans activism and strengthening the movement, increasing that invisibility to raise awareness of the issues and highlight the challenges that they're facing. So, in that program, we prioritize trans activism and we focus on collecting data and research. You know, as you hear, I always come back to the data and the research because that is really one of our core principles. But it's so important to be able to document these stories, to document the challenges, because that leads to a more comprehensive understanding and also inclusion and support. So a lot of the work that we're doing is about raising that visibility to support those institutions, organizations, and communities so that their issues are elevated to the forefront so that they have the resources and the ability to address their challenges to affect change. Another group that we are working with is our LBQ Connect program, and that is the Lesbian, Bisexual, Queer Connect program. And it's a global feminist program for lesbian, bisexual, queer, cisgender, transgender, and intersex persons, all those that identify with a female perspective. And it's about empowering their activism. It's a program, it's a mentor program where we recruited and identified 50 activists and we paired them with a mentor. And this is a global program, totally virtual. And in that partnership with their mentors, they have a resource to go to really discuss issues that they have a sounding board to be able to provide advice. And there's also convenings of the entire group so that there is that broader discussion so that they can share information, share success stories, also share what their challenges are to really tap into this broad scope. The reason that this program is so important is because it also provides funding through grants. One interesting and actually sobering statistic is that all of the funds that are raised and provided through governments, through private foundations, all of that money that is raised, that pool of money broadly raised, only 1% of that money is earmarked, dedicated, and funneled to LGBTIQ organizations. Only 1%. Of that 1%, 5% of that goes to LBQ focused organizations. So this is a community that is underserviced, under resourced, and really what we want to do is amplify and advocate for them and to build and support that. So we are funding, finding, and supporting the future leaders of the LBQ community.
Talk to me about the United Nations because you have a very special relationship with the United Nations from a consultative standpoint. And I know we'll break it down for us really quickly because we only have a few minutes left, but I want to be able to talk about that relationship and what that actually does by way of advocacy and also information sharing.
Yes, that the UN relationship is a very complex relationship in the sense that it is an environment where there is a lot of discussion. A lot of the issues that are addressed is on human rights issues, broadly speaking, and our relationship with the core group, and we are the secretariat of the core group, is to work with this contingency of over 30 countries that they have made and staked out and taken the position of support for LGBTIQ issues, for identifying and amplifying human rights violations, for any of the legislation or any of the documentation that comes out of the UN that's addressing human rights is inclusive with gender non-conforming language to make sure that that is included in that. So it's a lot of consistent consensus and relationship building that we do at the UN and support our country allies in providing the resources, the research for them to be able to go into those circles and advocate to other countries about why this is important and why this is an issue that they should address and oftentimes hopefully change their stance and their opinions on things, because as we all know and as we know from Uganda, that the oppression is really happening from a government level where laws are being enacted, rights are being taken away to diminish the presence of the LGBTI community. So at the UN level, we are hopefully able to build these relationships through the core group to be able to advocate for change.
Yeah. And as we think about where we are right now, obviously sounding, having a voice, sounding out what the issues are, that's important, right? To be able to talk about what the issues are, what are the things that are prevalent. But I want to ask the question from a global perspective. Are you finding some common themes between what the challenges are that are being endured here in the US versus globally?
I think yes, there are definitely some similarities. I would say, and this is my own personal kind of philosophy and feeling of that, is that the issues that the LGBT community are dealing with here in the United States are tragic and they are horrible and reprehensible. I would say globally, the level that the LGBTI community globally is impacted, they're about 20 years behind where our LGBT activists and the movement is here, in the sense that things are a lot more oppressive, things are more entrenched and institutionalized, whereas we have in this country we do have our rights, the ones that still exist, that they haven't tried to whittle away. There is representation and there are rights and privileges that the LGBTI community has here. In many of the countries that we work with, they aren't even at that level where they are they're fighting just for the existence and the acknowledgement. And for them to get to the point where they're fighting for rights as same-sex marriage or partner benefits. Those are advanced struggles that many of the countries that we work with, they just aren't at that level. They're at a basic survival, acceptance, visibility level. So I think there's so much more work that can be done and what needs to be done to be able to provide an environment where they're able to not only survive but to thrive.
Chandler, you have a great heart in terms of advocacy, and I know that you advocate for social justice and the rights of the LGBTIQ community. Where does the passion, where does this passion breed from?
Well, for me personally, I will admit to not admit my age, but I am of a generation where my parents were of the civil rights generation. So I've always been exposed to or had a a commitment to community and understanding that we are part of a larger community and that we need to actively be involved to create the community that we want to live in. So it's really I attribute it a lot to my parents and um, their teaching of sensitivity, empathy, and involvement in activism.
So what's next for you? I mean, obviously a lot on the plate. What do you have coming around the corner?
Well, we actually have a lot of things coming up. Right now, we're in the planning stages for, and as I mentioned before, one of our pillars is celebrate. We are in the process now of planning for our next Celebration of Courage Gala and Awards, where we honor those trailblazers, those activists, and those allies that are making an impact in the LGBTIQ movement. So we're gearing up for that, and that is our largest and our key fundraiser of the season. So please go to our website to learn more information about the celebration of courage, to see how you can be involved in it as those who are listening to your program locally. So that's our next big initiative and big fundraising initiative. We have summits that are coming up. Our Out Summit, where we bring together a coalition of activists to really discuss the trends and the things most pressing for the LGBTIQ movement, and that will be coming up in December. So there are a lot of things on our plate, and please go to outrightinternational.org and sign up for our newsletter, and you'll learn all about all of these exciting initiatives coming up and how you can be a part of the solution.
And talk about where we are today. Do you find that, we talk about fundraising and a lot of money had to be really put out, and it's been said, towards government, towards awareness, making people aware so that way these rights could actually become law. The fundraising component, it still continues.
It always continues. You have to fund the movement. There's always going to be a need for resource building, for resource generation, to be able to provide resources for underserved communities and be able to train the next and future leaders of the movement to be able to sustain the movement and advance the movement. It's fundamental and it's essential that we support, financially support the movement and the activism. So fundraising will always be a need, and always there's room at the table for more.
Uh, Chandler Bazemore, we're out of time. Got to thank you, brother, for coming and being with us here and sharing so much on what is going on with the work of Outright and in the LGBTIQ community. Sometimes I leave out a letter. I want to make sure I got it all together.
No worries. Thank you so much for this opportunity, and we appreciate BronxNet wanting to advance and amplify our mission.
Hey, thank you, and thank you for the work that you're doing as well. All righty. Taking a quick break. We'll be back with more right after this.